I've had a couple semi-stalkerish women who creeped on me, which is weird, because I'm not even good looking, but my favorite creepy girl story was just a one-off funny moment. When I was 22, I was hanging out with a couple friends just grilling and drinking, when one of them was suddenly like, "Do you guys wanna go to a costume party?" Naturally, we were like yes. So we slapped together some quick costumes and hopped in an Uber. We showed up to this place, and it was less a costume party and more 6 people in an apartment wearing costumes, but there was beer and a dog, so I was happy. Anyway, we spend the evening playing board games with this group of people who seem just as confused as we are. The entire night, there's this one girl who's sitting next to me on the couch, but she hasn't said a single word. Not one. I don't think much of it. Some people are shy, it's whatever. But then, during a lull in the party, out of nowhere, she gets closer to me, looks me dead in the eye, and whispers "I like blue-eyed." Then shifts back to her spot like nothing happened. I turned to my friend, and was just like, "We have to leave." I still think about that night sometimes. I've got 2. First one was, when I was 15. I was walking past my school and about to cross the road when a trio of drunk women in their 40s or 50s started hassling me about how good I looked, pressing me in against the wall, and surrounded me, so that I couldn't get out, and holding me back, while they copped feels. Not a fun experience, especially when you can't even tell people about it, or how creeped out it's left you, because as a guy you should somehow be proud when women 3 times your age are grabbing your cock through your trousers against your will. The other one was about 4 years ago. I was 22, and asked a girl I'd met out. She seemed nice at first. Met her in a little cafe, while I was waiting to meet some friends, and we got talking about Pokemon and some other stuff for 20 or 30 minutes, before adding each other on Facebook. Only weird thing was that in that time she told me she'd been raped by her ex. I thought maybe she was just being open about it as a way of dealing with the trauma, so I let it slide, and messaged her a bit later to see if she'd be interested in a date. She told me that she already had a boyfriend, but that she'd love to hang out as friends, which was fair enough, so I agreed to that, and we met up a few days later. She'd brought her boyfriend with her, which I expected. I got the sense he wasn't too comfortable with me, which I can understand, but what threw me was she also brought her ex. I can't 100% say it was the same ex she'd mentioned, but he really gave off that vibe with the way he talked and behaved around her. She kept on talking about dead babies and abortions obsessively as well. You couldn't change the subject at all. Creeped me the hell out, so I just sat there with a smile and acted civil while internally going, "Please don't kill me." And I haven't spoken to her since. Not a guy myself, but one I dated, had a couple fun stories. One was a girl he got set up with by friends on a blind date. As they went out to dinner, they passed a jewelry store, and she insisted on going in, so they could pick out rings for when they get engaged. He paid for dinner and noped right out. The second one went better, until he took her back to her place, where she went to the kitchen, pulled a nice big sharp chef's knife, and told him he was staying the night. He said, "I did what any red-blooded American male would do." Agreed, but said I needed to go to the bathroom, where I promptly crawled out the window and never saw her again. A few months ago, I was walking home from school when this drunk middle-aged woman grabbed me by the arm, wrapped me in a bear hug against a wall, and started grinding on me. I wasn't interested. I had an exam the next morning, and I was just trying to get home. She wouldn't let me go, and she forced my hands onto her breasts and in between her legs. Luckily this was over clothes. She also started punching me for no reason, as well as saying / doing extremely racist Asian stereotypes. I'm Asian. Eventually, I got away, but I've never fully recovered from the experience, and I've basically never been able to talk about it with IRL friends. Doubt I ever will. Edit. Oh yeah, there was someone there who walked by who cold helped me. Instead, he turned away and got out of there quickly. He saw that I was uncomfortable and signaling for help, but he did nothing. I was in New Orleans watching some street performers go crazy, and a mom came up behind me and fully grabbed both of my ass cheeks. I was 18 and standing next to both of my parents, and she said, "Hey, you remind me of my son," which is probably one of the weirdest things to say in that moment. I started going to a new doctor. The receptionist was cute, so I flirted a bit. in a waiting room with other patients around. It was pretty innocent. She reciprocated. I figured it was all in good fun. She escalated a bit. Stuff like scheduling me for days she was there, calling me directly with reminders, etc. Then she went into the records, got my cell number, and started texting me, telling me she wants to meet up. She's not happy with her husband, they never have sex anymore, etc. I noped out as fast as I could. I was at a friend's birthday party for her dog, probably was just an excuse to have people over and get drunk, and another friend, let's call her M, is also there. I had known M for a couple of years, but I only really ever see her a couple of times a year. She is very drunk, and also very married. Her husband was also at the same party. At one point in the night, she asks me if I have a girlfriend. I did not. If I'm looking for a girlfriend, where I'd been looking for a girlfriend, etc. Then she says that I had been looking in all the wrong places and that if I wanted a good girl, I should let her know. During this conversation, she also kept trying to grab my hand, and so at one point I made sure to always be holding a handful of mini pretzels in both of my hands as a sort of excuse to not be able to hold hands. I can't hold hands if I'm holding pretzels. Logic. Then finally she says I like you. I seldom wipe. I really like you. I'm like okay. This repeats for a while until she says stop saying okay. It makes me feel like you think I'm bullshitting. Then she keeps following me around the room and keeps trying to make me dance with her until I leave. Her husband was pretty much always in the same room as us, no more than a few feet away, while this was all happening. Thought I was crazy and imagining it all until another friend asked me on the same night as we were leaving, was M trying to hit on you? I was bored once at a small, local festival and didn't want to be there, so I just got a drink and started walking around aimlessly when I noticed a fire brother. The display was interesting and she was pretty hot. When she was on break she went to get a drink and we started talking. She seemed nice, we had a laugh, but her break was up and she resumed her display, so I left her to it and continued to wander around. 5 minutes later security was called to her display. Turns out some crazy girl, whom I had never met before, was following me around the festival and assaulted the fire brother. She had claimed that me and Crazy, were together and fire brother was trying to break us up. This younger girl who I never even spoke to once in high school had a crush on me. I got a note from her in my locker asking if I wanted to go out with her. I had no idea of how to get it back to her, so I just wrote no and taped it to my locker. Then she started following me everywhere. I would try to talk to her, but she would just keep walking away, pretending I wasn't talking to her. This goes on for like 2 years. Then I was hanging out by myself one day around the neighborhood, and she comes walking up with 3 guys who wanted to kick my ass for some dumb unrelated stuff. She somehow found out about it and brought them to me. After an embarrassing scene with me diffusing the situation with these angry gentlemen, they leave, and she finally sits down on the curb right next to me and starts flirting. All I could do was just stare at her enormous bangs with a WTF expression until she got embarrassed and left. Girl in my dorm. She had a crush on my roommate. My roommate clearly didn't like and told her several times. Things got out of hand and there were times where my roommate would come running back to the room yelling lock the door, and moments later the girl and her friend would try to come barge in without permission. What's creepy is this next part. Apparently one night we accidentally left our room unlocked and she decided to sneak in and play/rub our heads. We didn't wake up, but her roommate told us what she did a couple days later. I haven't seen her in about a year and I'm quite glad. I met a girl online. She seemed normal enough, so we ended up going out for a drink. I found out that night that she actually lived an hour away in a rural town, but whatever. Well, we went out, had a drink, then went to go play pool. We drove over in my vehicle, and when we got to the pool hall she checked her phone and saw she had a text from her ex-BF. She proceeded to cry incessantly. I was trapped. I didn't know what to do, so I offered to take her back to her car. She said she wasn't sure if she could drive, and she asked if I would take her home. I declined, saying it wouldn't be a good idea because A. Her car was like a mile away. B. She lived an hour away. C. How in the hell did she plan to get to her car the next day? so she agrees for the night to end all the while apologizing vigorously. The next day she texts me, apologizes, and offers to buy me lunch. She seemed alright when we were getting to know each other, and I was bored, so I figured what the hell, and gave her another shot. She brought her kids to the lunch. When I saw them get out of the car I texted her and said that it wasn't okay for me to meet them. She became irate and said her sitter cancelled at the last minute. Even though the drive was an hour long from her house, she didn't find it important to ask if it would be weird for her kids to come. It was at that point that I stated I was no longer interested. Now for the creepy part. 2 days later she texted me, but I didn't respond. She kept at it and kept asking if I wanted to go out the next weekend. After multiple texts I messaged her and said I wasn't interested and I had plans to take my friend out for her birthday. This resulted in even more irate messaging about how she wasn't comfortable with me going out with other girls and so forth. This resulted in her getting blocked. Turns out she took a guess on where we would go, since was only one nightclub in the town, and she showed up. I had to tell the birthday girl that I was leaving and to call me when she was ready to go. My night was ruined. Birthday girl got home okay in case you're wondering. But wait, there's more. A couple of weeks after that there was an ice storm and the power had gone out in the area. I ended up going over to a friend's house to hang out since they had a generator. We were playing cards and enjoying ourselves. Suddenly I get a text from a number one didn't recognize. Are you alright? I'm really worried. The message read, I'm fine. Who is this? I replied, it's creepy girl. She responded. I ignored it and put my phone down. The next message sent chills down my spine. I'm really worried. I'm standing outside your house and all the lights are off. Are you sure you're okay? She had never been to my house and I had never given her my last name. My final message before blocking her involved not contacting me or I'd call the police. It turns out she was a secretary or some shit for a police department and she ran my tag to found out where I lived, drove over an hour to my house in the midst of an ice storm, then got a new number all so she could check up on me.
Thank you for watching only on Reddit. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Leave a comment about the most interesting story. And hit the bell if you don't want to miss any videos. Until next time.